Hello and welcome. Independent National Electoral Commission, security agencies, other stakeholders meet ahead of Saturday's governorship election in Edo State. Nigerian Working Group on Peace Building and Governance asks federal and state governments to end security challenges and the effect of COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Gunmen killed 2 federal road safety officials, abduct 10 others in Nasarawa State. And World Health Organization says coronavirus cases nearly reaching 30 million as cases rise globally. Plus business, sports, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Securities and Exchange Commission classifies cryptocurrencies as securities to be included in its regulatory supervision.
On sports news tonight, former tennis world number 1 Andy Murray receives French Open wildcard.
The countdown to the Edo State governorship election begins in full force with less than 5 days left for the people of the state to decide who governs them for the next 4 years. And as the preparations continue, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and the police maintain that measures they have put in place should usher in a free, fair and credible election if the politicians and the electorate follow them. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu explains further that the result sheets for the exercise now carry new security features. He was speaking today at a stakeholders meeting in Benin City, the state capital, ahead of the election. And staying with the Edo governorship election, the former national chairman of the APC, Chief John Oyegun, is asking the people of Edo State to vote their conscience in the coming election, as he denies ever making any comment on the fortunes of the APC or any other party in the elections. He believes that no individual or group can decide on behalf of the people of Edo State, urging them to come out massively to exercise their democratic rights. Chief John Oyegun said in a statement that he has been consistent with his views on what he describes as the mistreatment of Governor Godwin Obaseki by the APC National Working Committee and his forced exit from the party. The statement reads, Governor Obaseki stood bravely for the dignity and pride of his people and in the process suffered unacceptable indignities. He wants Edo people to vote for good governance, common decency and principled leadership, especially in the political arena, and the protection of their democratic rights. Now, apart from assurances from INEC and the police, the National Peace Committee is also ensuring that key players commit to peace accords ahead of the polls. The chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, emphasized the need to sign the peace accord before the polls, but wants political leaders to keep their supporters in check. He was speaking in Benin City during a courtesy visit to the Edo State Government House. On his part, Governor Godwin Obaseki says he remains committed to the peace process, noting that he is the biggest beneficiary of a peaceful environment as the Chief Security Officer of the state.
The purpose of this accord to ensure that all those who are involved get hold of their supporters and party people to ensure there is peace in the country. This is why we're here, and I want to thank you for coming to receive us here. And I want to thank you again, and I pray that the peace continue to reign, not only in Edo State, but also in the whole country.
This is the first time in the history of your committee that you have had to intervene ahead of the elections that normally, usually come in after elections where there are indications that there may be disruptions or a breakdown of order. I just want to assure you that as the government and as an individual, we totally align with your cause, we totally align with what you represent, and to let you know that it is in our best interest as a government to promote peace and ensure that there is peace in our land, elections notwithstanding. And that we have committed to ourselves and to our people and to our monarch that we'll do all within our powers to maintain peace. We're also going to implore you to ensure that the same amount of communication is had with all the other parties that also have a responsibility for ensuring that there is peace in these elections.
And moving on to other stories, the Nigerian Working Group on Peace Building and Governance is asking President Muhammadu Buhari and the state governors to commence talks to address the rising security challenges in the country. The group said in a statement that Nigerians are suffering from the double menace of insecurity as well as the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on their standards of living. Signees of the statement include a former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Atahiru Jega, the former Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, John Onayekon, and the former Chief of Army Staff, General Martin Luther Agwai. According to the group, Nigeria, like the rest of the world, is battling the coronavirus pandemic. However, citizens in Nigeria are facing double suffering because they also have to contend with rising insecurity and violence across the country. The Nigerian government must immediately address the rising insecurity if it's to succeed in the fight against the pandemic. The position comes on the heels of former President Olusegun Obasanjo accusing the Buhari administration of driving Nigeria into becoming a failed and divided state. In the meantime, suspected kidnappers have attacked 2 buses conveying some Federal Road Safety Corps officials in Toto local government area of Nasarawa State, killing 2 officials and abducting 10 others. The attack occurred when the officials were traveling from Sokoto and Kebbi states to a location in the southeast. 4 other officials were also injured in the attack. Corps Public Education Officer BC Kazim confirmed in a statement that one of the officers died during the attack, while the second person died in hospital, adding that the 10 missing operatives were believed to have been kidnapped. Meanwhile, the FRSC Corps Marshal, Mr. Boboye Oyeyemi, has ordered that the incident should be immediately reported to the relevant authorities for prompt rescue of the victims, while investigations into the incident have commenced. Over in the northwest, the bandit leader identified as Sada has surrendered himself to the troops of Operation Sahel Sanity, submitting 3 rifles to them. Military authorities say Sada surrendered to superior gunfire from the troops. The acting director of Defense Media Operations, Brigadier General Bernard Onyuko, said in a statement that the bandit is being profiled for further necessary action by the civil authority. The statement adds that from August the 30th to September the 12th, 31 kidnapped victims were rescued by the troops, while 8 bandits and 1 informant were also apprehended in Katsina and Zamfara states. The former Central Bank Deputy Governor, Dr. Obadiah Melaifia, has again been questioned by the Department of State Services after he honored their invitation for the 3rd time today in Jos, the Plateau State capital. Before Dr. Melaifia's arrival at the DSS office, a group of protesters assembled, carrying placards with different inscriptions, calling for an end to the intimidation and harassment of the former ADC presidential candidate. He's been questioned over his recent comment on the security situation in the country on a radio station. Dr. Melaifia explained that he had to honor the invitation as a law-abiding citizen of Nigeria to clear whatever issues raised by the security agents.
I have received messages from very distinguished Muslim clerics, including Sheikh Dahiru Bauchi. He sent message to tell me that he's been praying for me. Muslim youths have stood beside me. They have prayed with me. They believe that I am their voice. Christian youths have stood with me. They believe that I'm their voice. There are so many people. Thousands have already died. Women, children, youths, elderly. They have no voice. I have become the voice of the martyrs. I can only thank them. They are widows, orphans who are left behind. I thank them for their patience. Let us pray for our country. Let us pray that peace will return to Nigeria.
Now let's bring you a bit more about the Edo State governorship election preparations. And as those preparations continue, the Independent National Electoral Commission, that's INEC, and the police maintain that the measures they've put in place should usher in a free, fair and credible election.
Key speakers at the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC Stakeholders Forum in Benin City, the Edo State capital, set to interact with various groups ahead of the September 19 Edo governorship election.
The chairman of the commission has already walked in. Honorable Chairman, you're welcome, sir.
The INEC chairman has fresh information to share, including the time for the election, which is now to commence at 8:30 a.m. He explains that while the facial authentication feature of the Z-Pad would not be utilized in the election, its other functions remain.
Our ICT department worked on the new device and made a presentation to the commission. But the commission decided that the system needs to be robust enough before it can be deployed in a major election. However, the uploading of polling unit level results in the election on Saturday will proceed as planned. The Z-Pads have already been delivered, configured, and ad hoc staff trained on its deployment on election day.
The Inspector General of Police highlights steps taken to ensure security.
We shall be deploying a total of 31,000 police personnel for the purpose of protecting the personnel and access of the INEC, the electorate, the residents of Edo State during and immediately after the elections. All the 3 senatorial districts and 2,627 polling units across the state have been appropriately mapped out, and adequate deployment will be made to ensure security.
The participants welcomed the invitation to ask questions, seeking assurance for a peaceful and credible election.
We're very glad to see that we have only, specific numbers of the sheets signed by the REC and maybe the National Commissioner before they are distributed.
What do you think about officer that will be on the way, seeing his colleague with a politician coming, living at the will they stop that politician?
The answers provide more insight on what to expect on election day.
We have introduced so many security features on the Edo ballot paper and result sheets that we have never introduced in previous elections. But I won't tell you what the features are. You will see it on election day.
We have instructed our personnel who will be on election duties, especially those that are armed, to arrest any police officer, whether in uniform or in mufti, that is following any politician.
In addition to the assurances given, the INEC and police authorities also reminded all concerned that a peaceful, free and credible election is the responsibility of every citizen, so everyone ought to give their role the seriousness it deserves. Jessica Olubuse, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 seeks vigilance from Nigerians as cases continue to drop. That's in a moment. Do join us again. And now to our ongoing coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nigeria has recorded an all-time low of cases since the month of August, with 97 confirmed cases from 13 states in the last 24 hours. While the government insists the report should be taken with utmost caution, as there's an urgent need for states to ramp up testing. This and other issues form the discussions at the bi-weekly news conference of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja today.
For over 4 weeks now, Nigeria has continued to record a decline in the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19. It is an all-low record of 97 cases reported in the last 24 hours. At the resumption of the bi-weekly briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja, the government warns that the low cases reported should be taken with utmost caution.
Though we continue to record declining positivity rates every day, we are reluctant to conclude that we are halting the spread of this disease because many states have not sustained the testing rate that will give us the assurance. I therefore again request our state governments to ramp up the testing momentum by ramping up sample collection so that we can improve and increase the tests.
Nigeria continues to progressively witness declining confirmed cases of COVID-19. While this suggests that we are winning this war, the reality is that we need to improve on our commitment to eliminate the virus completely by abiding with the protocols so that we can return to a semblance of what was our normal life.
The task force appeals to the striking Joint Health Workers Union to shelve the industrial action in order not to reverse the gains already made in the fight against COVID-19. Meanwhile, the task force announces a further reopening of the aviation sector, and the Minister of State for Education says government is at liberty to reopen schools, but that will be done with strict compliance with safety protocols.
So all airports in Nigeria are now open for flights, for domestic flights. Including those that are in private charter operations, will no longer need approvals from us to go domestically, to operate within domestic airports, in all government-approved airports and in all government-owned airports.
You may have heard several states begin to make moves around reopening. They are all in order. However, they must be guided. They must make the provisions that we've required.
Nigeria has recorded over 56,200 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the last 6 months, having tested over 442,000 samples nationwide. While the country has successfully treated and discharged over 44,000 cases, it has sadly lost over 1,080 persons to the virus.
The scheduled reopening of tertiary institutions today may have been stalled at the Lagos State University after the Academic Staff Union of Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities locked the university's gates in protest of the non-payment of minimum wage. Meanwhile, activities have fully commenced at the Lagos State Polytechnic in Ikorodu, with staff and students following the safety protocols.
This is not how students of the Lagos State University imagined their first day of resumption after staying at home for 6 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
At the end of the day,
They are greeted by the Academic Staff Union of Universities and their non-academic counterparts who shut the school gates in protest over the alleged non-payment of their minimum wage by the Lagos State government.
The resumption, has been stopped. You can see our gates, being locked because the government has not really, implemented the payment of, minimum wage in the last, 18 months.
Already frustrated from staying at home for months, the students appeal to the unions to use other means of resolving the matter.
I'm using this medium to pledge and implore the state government and the federal government to please attend to this concerned body.
fair hearing. If you gave me that notice on Friday.
The Vice-Chancellor of LASU is also caught up in this action, and attempts by him to dialogue with the unions ends in deadlock.
Everybody has been involved in this conversation, and I know that we will resolve it. So we just ask that our students should be very patient. The university has reopened, but within the next couple of days, I expect we will be able to put this behind us.
Also reacting to the protest, Special Advisor to the Governor of Education, Tokunbo Wahab, released a statement saying LASU receives 450 million naira every month from the state government as subvention and asked the management to pay up staff salaries. Elsewhere, activities have fully commenced at the Lagos State Polytechnic in Ikorodu, with staff and students following the COVID-19 safety protocols. Being a novel virus, the COVID-19 pandemic brought with it many uncertainties. The seemingly unending wait by students was one of them. Now they're just happy to be back.
We are back fully. Lecture is going on fully, and everybody's happy to see each other again.
You can use it for sizing.
Apart from in-person instructions, online teaching is also being factored in by the management of LASPOTEC to accommodate the new normal in the face of the pandemic.
We're taking our HND 1, HND 2, they are resuming today. Instead of having students coming in all together, we have divided them into batches. So batch 1 will come and have their lectures 1 hour. Batch 2 will also come, have their lectures 1 hour.
Meanwhile, the University of Lagos is yet to reopen its doors to students, as the federal government is yet to announce a resumption date.
There are reports of some drama at the venue of the presidential panel probing the activities of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission under the watch of its suspended acting chairman, Ibrahim Magu. The chairman of the presidential panel, Justice Ayo Salami, reportedly ordered security operatives to walk out 2 lawyers on Mr. Magu's legal team shortly after they were introduced. Channels Television gathered that trouble began after Mr. Magu's lead counsel, Wahab Shitu, introduced other members of the legal team, but Justice Salami interrupted him, insisting that only Mr. Shitu would be allowed to defend the suspended EFCC acting chairman. The panel is investigating a series of allegations brought against Mr. Magu and the EFCC under his watch. And here in Lagos, 2 persons have been confirmed dead following a collision involving a commuter train and 2 vehicles at the railway in the Oshodi area of the state. A passenger bus carrying 6 passengers had reportedly veered onto the tracks while crossing the rail at PWD Inward Oshodi before colliding with the oncoming commuter train. The victims, a father and a son, were said to be driving into the shopping arena when they were caught by the speeding train as their SUV got stuck on the rail track. The 6 persons in the passenger bus escaped with different degrees of injuries. Meanwhile, the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the Minister of Transportation, Chibuike Amechi, have also visited the scene of the incident. They say the fatal accident will strengthen the government's resolve to do the needful and prevent a recurrence of such a sad incident in the future. The Ondo State Commissioner of Police, Bolaji Salami, has been explaining the cause of the fire outbreak at the office of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Akure, Ondo State, blaming it on a faulty electrical connection. The police chief explains that the final investigation from the Federal Fire Service revealed that the fire was not caused by sabotage. On security, during the forthcoming governorship election, Mr. Salami urges all political leaders and parties in the state to call their supporters to order.
The fire incident was caused by faulty electrical connection to the store where the smart cards were kept. we all witnessed that these items were kept in the 2 containers within the premises of the INEC. And before we could put off the fire, finally, all the cards were burnt to ashes. The containers, they put on the air conditioners there 24 hours. They don't put it off at all. And that is what the Federal Fire Service gave us, that it could be the faulty connection within the 2 containers. That's where how the fire started.
When the news at 10 returns, Securities and Exchange Commission classifies cryptocurrencies as securities to be included in its regulatory supervision. That's on Business News. Please join us again. There you have dozens of Uber and Bolt drivers in Abuja taking to the streets in protest against the service providers. They're calling for a review in charges for services, commissions and proper profiling of users. The drivers insist that charges for services in Abuja remain the lowest when compared with other cities in the country. They also maintain that the current customer profiling method by Uber and Bolt puts their members in harm's way. Consequently, the drivers are giving operators of Uber and Bolt a 7-day ultimatum to address their demands or risk service withdrawal in the nation's capital.
Enough is enough. Yes. We are tired of what Uber and Bolt is doing to drivers in Abuja. Yes. We use our cars. The lease car is 2003 car. Yes. And then you check it. If you go to Lagos, they charge 65 naira per kilometer. Yes. You go to Benin, they charge 70 naira per kilometer. Yes. You go to Imo State, they charge 65 naira per kilometer. Yes. You go to Enugu, they charge 60 naira per kilometer. Yes. But when it comes to Abuja, the most expensive city in the country, they charge 45 naira per kilometer. Is that what we want? No. We want the price reviewed. Review proper profiling of riders. And we need cancellation fee added to the money. Cancellation fee, waiting time, we need it added to our fare. Enough is enough. We are not going on strike today. What we are doing is Uber and Bolt, you have within 7 days, review your prices, review your methodologies, review your policies, review your terms and conditions. Show us a better option on how to do this business. If not, after 1 week, drivers of Uber and Taxify in Abuja, we will off our app. No driver, no rider will be able to go online on that day.
To aviation now, the Akwa Ibom state-owned carrier Ibom Air has launched operations into the Akano Ibiam International Airport in Enugu State from Lagos and Abuja. The chief operating officer of the airline, Mr. Joe Juriesi, explains that the airport serves as a gateway to the eastern part of the country and is also confident that the route will thrive. He was speaking at the formal launch ceremony at the Enugu airport.
Balloons in colors of domestic operator Ibom Air greet passengers as they approach the airline check-in counter. It's not just an ordinary business day, but one marking the launch of the Enugu route. It's boarding time as the COVID-19 protocol of social distancing is observed, and on board, every passenger wears a mask through the flight. 50 minutes later, the aircraft taxis to the warm reception of a water cannon salute at the Akano Ibiam International Airport. Then a short ceremony which has the Deputy Governor of Enugu State in attendance.
To the glory of God, you're welcome to Enugu State.
For the Akwa Ibom state-owned carrier, this route incursion is part of a strategic growth plan.
So many states that use this airport, Ebonyi State, Anambra State, some parts of Benue come here to fly up to Ogoja and Cross River State. So the clientele for this airport is huge. It's the gateway to the southeast.
Our staff are well trained to deliver the usual thing we do at Ibom Air: on-time departures, scheduled reliability, and superior service. Excellent service. Yeah, so we do this. This is who we are, and we want to share a bit of that in this area as well.
With the right aircraft usage, especially during this COVID-19 lull, passengers are excited about the Lagos-Enugu route, and this veteran actress lends her support.
We can travel from here, and moreover, we now have variety. You can go to any other airline. With this one, in addition now, it's easier.
Enugu is a very lucrative route, and I think it was a good business decision on the part of Ibom Air to decide to include Enugu in their routes.
Enugu is the second route Ibom Air is expanding to after the domestic restart of flights. The route will be operated once daily with the Bombardier CRJ aircrafts.
As more reactions continue to trail the recent hike in petrol pump price, the federal government says it will begin converting the cars and generators of Nigerians to run on gas effective from next month. The Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipre Silva, says this will be done free of charge for all Nigerians to cushion the effect of the hike. According to him, the move would reduce carbon emissions as well as the demand for petrol, since cars are capable of running on both gas and premium motor spirit. He adds that the federal government will encourage Nigerians to convert their cars to dual fuel, since gas is cheaper. The minister further explains that it will be done for free because the government is going to monitor the process. He made the comments during a live program on national television. Let's take a look at some business news now, and here's Anne Waudu.
Thanks a lot, Ijoma. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Securities and Exchange Commission says it plans to regulate cryptocurrency investments in the country. In a statement released today, the capital markets regulator explained that the move has become necessary in order to ensure integrity and transparency in the market and to protect its investors. While classifying cryptocurrencies as securities, the Commission hints that any crypto assets that are not structured to be exclusively offered through crowdfunding portals or other exempt methods will be regulated. In 2018, Nigeria's central bank had warned that cryptocurrencies were not legal tender and that investors were unprotected. Meanwhile, data from U.S. blockchain research firm shows that small cryptocurrency transfers in Nigeria were nearly $56 million in June, which is almost 50% more than it was in 2019. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries has cut its forecast for oil demand growth for this year to an average of 90.2 million barrels per day. OPEC, which is marking its 60th anniversary in its monthly report, which was released today, explains that the cut by 400,000 barrels is due to the weaker than expected recovery in India and other Asian countries. It also adds that the negative impact on oil demand in Asia is expected to persist through the first half of next year. But on the flip side, it expects global oil demand to grow by 6.6 million barrels per day to an average of 96.6 million next year. And that's down by 400,000 barrels than its previous estimate. More than 7 billion naira. That's the amount gained by investors today as the domestic stock market commenced the third trading week in September. Well, it began on a positive note, but let's hear more from Chimese Obiwago.
Thanks, Anne, and welcome to Stock Market Report.
The equities market rebounded from last week's losses, although marginally, and €1 addition to Dangote Cement shares did the magic. It was all red for the better part of trading until few minutes to the close of market when Dangote Cement made the gainers list. And you know, when that stock calls, the market shakes. And so, what appeared to be a red day turned green, with 0.05% gain on the overall index. See what we have on the sectoral indices. The industrial goods sector leading the pack. The banks are doing pretty well as well. Investors are still awaiting the closure of register for the interim dividend payment by the big boys in the sector. The likes of Stanbic IBTC, GT Bank, UBA, Access Bank and Zenith Bank. The results of these banks have actually reinvigorated the confidence in the market. The activity chart is not looking bad as well. Slightly above 3 billion naira was realized in the sale of a little over 257 million shares in 3,567 deals. Generally, there seemed to be some level of stability in the market. While the closure of register for interim dividend payment is being awaited, traders say the market will still uphold the gains on the all-share index, and so we should expect to see a brighter week. Let's hope that materializes. And that was the stock market report. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago.
And that's Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ijoma.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, World Health Organization says coronavirus cases nearly reaching 30 million as cases rise globally. Plus more stories from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Do join us again. Welcome back. The World Health Organization says nearly 30 million people around the world have contracted the coronavirus, while the death toll from COVID-19 related deaths is close to about 1 million. The Global Health Agency says 6 months after the coronavirus was declared a pandemic, the virus is surging in many countries, and some that had apparent success in suppressing initial outbreaks are also seeing infections rise again. Here's Simon Pusey with more and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The World Health Organization has reported a record one-day rise in the number of new coronavirus infections, with 307,930 reported over 24 hours. The agency said that deaths rose by more than 5,500, bringing the global total to 917,417. The biggest increases in infections were reported in India, the US and Brazil. Worldwide, there have been more than 28 million confirmed cases, half of which have been in the Americas. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced the country will enter a new 3-week nationwide lockdown after a second wave of cases. Israel is the first country to formally enter a new lockdown phase. Israelis will have to stay within 500 meters of their houses, but can travel to workplaces that will be allowed to operate on a limited basis. Mr. Netanyahu also announced a new economic package to assist businesses hurt by the new lockdown. Alexander Lukashenko, the contested Belarus leader, has arrived in the Russian city of Sochi for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. It will be their first face-to-face meeting since protests escalated in Belarus last month, following the disputed presidential election. The opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has said she regretted what she called Mr. Putin's dialogue with a dictator. Mr. Putin recognizes Mr. Lukashenko as the legitimate president of Belarus and says he has a Russian police force ready to intervene if protests get out of control. There is speculation he may want closer ties in exchange for continued support. Japan's governing party has elected Yoshihide Suga as its new leader to succeed Shinzo Abe, meaning he is almost certain to become the country's next prime minister. Mr. Suga serves as Chief Cabinet Secretary in the current administration and was widely expected to win. Last month, Mr. Abe announced his resignation for reasons of ill health. Mr. Suga is considered a close ally of Mr. Abe and likely to continue his predecessor's policies. Microsoft has announced its offer to buy the US operations of the popular video sharing app TikTok has been rejected, paving the way for Oracle to secure a last-minute deal. China's foreign ministry has reacted, saying that TikTok is being encircled and coerced into the sale. US President Donald Trump gave September the 15th deadline for the Chinese-owned app to sell or shut down in the United States. The Trump administration claims TikTok and other Chinese apps are national security threats. 2 more laboratories have confirmed Russia's government critic Alexei Navalny was poisoned with the Soviet-style nerve agent Novichok. Germany has also called for Russia to cooperate with the investigation. Special labs in Sweden and France have confirmed the initial results from Germany. Asked why Russia's request for Navalny's samples was being ignored, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman said Russia has all the information and samples it needs for an analysis. Violence has erupted on the streets of Colombia, with demonstrators clashing with officers during a protest against police brutality. Police used tear gas on demonstrators while they threw rocks at officers as anger spilled over in the center of the capital, Bogotá. Meanwhile, the mayor of Bogotá, Claudio Lopez, begged forgiveness and called for reconciliation after protests in Colombia's capital the past week left 10 civilians dead and hundreds injured. Landslides triggered by torrential rain have swept through 2 villages in Nepal, killing at least 12 people. 10 died and 21 are missing after a massive landslide swept away homes in a village near the border with the Tibet region of China, while 2 others died in a landslide in the northwest of the country. The latest fatalities took the death toll from landslides and flash floods in the exceptionally rainy monsoon season to 314. Hundreds of Argentines have protested in the capital, Buenos Aires, over a number of alleged injustices. Demonstrators protested against the government of Alberto Fernandez and what they say is the mismanagement of the country's economy and newly proposed judicial reform. Argentina's economy was in a deep crisis already before the pandemic hit, but the health crisis is now expected to shrink it by around 12% this year, driving millions of people into poverty. And finally, a spectacular Northern Lights display has illuminated the Finnish city of Rovaniemi. Seen in the Arctic region of Lapland, the spectacular lights shimmered for several hours in the early hours of Monday morning. September is one of the best times to see the lights, which are also known as Aurora Borealis. More dazzling displays are expected in the coming weeks. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Let's take a look at sports now. Here's Olumide Macaulay.
Thank you, Ijoma. Hello and welcome to Sports News. The World Cup TV rights trial of PSG chief Nasser El-Khelaifi and ex-FIFA official Jerome Valcke has begun in Switzerland. El-Khelaifi, who is also chairman of Qatar-owned broadcaster Bain Media, is charged with inciting Valcke to commit aggravated criminal mismanagement. The trial, which has already been delayed because of the pandemic, is scheduled to last until 25th of September at the Federal Criminal Court of Bellinzona. Both men who are present in court deny any wrongdoing. In the English Premier League, Wolverhampton Wanderers beat Sheffield United 2-0 in the game played at Bramall Lane. Raul Jimenez struck in the 3rd minute before Romain Saiz headed in a second soon after, which sealed the win. Elsewhere, Chelsea began their season with a convincing 3-1 win over Brighton. Italian midfielder Jorginho, Reece James and Kurt Zouma were all on target for the Blues. In tennis, Sandy Murray has received a wild card entry into the French Open, which begins on September 27th in Paris. Murray was also handed a wild card entry into the US Open last month, where he reached the 2nd round in his first Grand Slam after hip surgery last year. The Scot was the only non-French man of 8 players to be given a free pass into the main draw of the clay Grand Slam. Meanwhile, world number 1 Novak Djokovic says he's learned a lesson from the incident that led to his disqualification from the US Open for striking a line judge with the ball. Djokovic, who had already apologized for the incident, said he'd called on the linewoman to check on her health since the incident, and life goes on. That's it on Sports News. Ijama, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Olumide. And the main news again. The Independent National Electoral Commission, security agencies and other stakeholders today met ahead of Saturday's governorship election in Edo State. Major political parties attended the meeting, including the incumbent governor, Godwin Obaseki, while the candidate of the APC, Osage Izeyamu, was absent. Also, the Nigerian Working Group on Peace Building and Governance, comprising former INEC chairman Tahiru Jega, former Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, John Onayekon, among others, have asked the federal and state governments to end security challenges and the effects of COVID-19 pandemic in the country. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. To have a good night and stay safe as well.